right. What is up, guys? It's Bart Johnson here, and it is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, meaning it's time to go live and hang out and discuss some filmmaking craziness that has been announced just 2 days ago. But before we dive into that, I'm going to start this show just the same way, unfortunately, that I seem to be starting a lot of these shows, by apologizing for missing several weeks of the show. I've been super busy, both with work stuff, but also with some cool stuff for the channel. Some has already come out, so make sure you check that stuff out, and more stuff coming soon. But anyway, excuses aside, I missed you guys. I missed seeing your lovely avatars popping up in the chat here and hanging out with you. And we got a beast of a topic today that we're going to talk about. So if it is your first time here, welcome. We're going to have a good time hanging out here today. This one's going to be more of a thoughts and discussion kind of thing. So we are going to be talking about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. Yeah, and so there's a ton of detailed review videos, not review videos, but, you know, reviewing the specs. Because while it is available now, it's not really, maybe in a few people's hands, but most people have it in transit coming to them. But there's a ton of resources out there, articles, videos, that'll go super deep into all of the specs. So I don't want to go too deep into that. I just want to talk about the stuff that I feel is really relevant to me, might be relevant to you, some of the good stuff, some of the stuff that I'm kind of like, and also what this could mean for future cameras from Blackmagic. And you know what it's going to kind of do to the industry, because we got something big here that we really weren't expecting. But of course, you don't just want to hear from me. You guys want to be a part of the conversation too. So today, of course, since we are live, we have the ability to pull our chat up here on the screen. As you can see, most of the posts are from me, as I was having, of course, pre-show YouTube issues, but hopefully we got all of that figured out. We got my buddy Aaron in here from New Legend Pictures there. We got good old Blackmagic Tim. I know he's got some thoughts on this. Sean Mark Nipper in here, and Wannabe Films. Yeah, so like Wannabe Films said, interested to hear everyone's thoughts on the camera. You're going to hear my thoughts because I have the big portion of the screen. But I do want to hear your guys' thoughts too. So as we're going along and we talk about some of this stuff, I want to hear your input. And if you are watching this show after the fact, you couldn't catch us live, first off, we missed you. And second off, feel free to put your thoughts and everything in the comments, because this has been a whirlwind over the past 2 days. Just announced 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, so much information to process. Everyone has been scrambling, and I myself am too, so I was trying to refresh myself on all of the details and specs before the show started, and so I could make some mistakes, I could overlook something. So please, guys, keep me in check, and if there's something I'm missing, let me know. Man, we got a good crew here in the chat. Mr. Brett Monk, good to see you, man. Alex, good to be here, good to have you here. So there's going to be a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into the overview here. So for those of you who somehow may not know and just clicked on this video and joined because you like me, that's awesome. But there was a new camera released, and it's probably going to be a pretty big deal. So let's take a peek here. It's been a while since I've streamed up here in the studio. Oh man, that makes the chat look terrible, doesn't it? Hang on, let me change my little chat thing here. Does that help? Yeah, that helps a little bit. I was playing with some new layouts. Whatever, you guys get the idea. You're still on the screen in there. Otherwise, I would just go to my my other one. But anyway, so I'm getting sidetracked. We got a lot. I'm like, ooh, a butterfly. But here we go. So Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera. This is the Blackmagic Design actual product page. And obviously now we have two models out there in the world. We have the 4K and we have the 6K. Both of which are shipping now, surprisingly enough. I believe I saw some people from B&H who actually got confirmation of their shipping for the 6K. And I believe Adorama was promising by Monday that they would be able to get those things out and everything. So that's pretty crazy. Furworks is saying it's the Pocket 4K with a nose job. Yes. So the idea here, and you're absolutely right, the idea here is that this is essentially, it's the same size in terms of height and width as the Pocket 4K, but obviously it's a little bit deeper because there is a new mount on here. And that is another one of the big things in addition to the sensor, which I'm going to talk about, but it is an EF mount as opposed to a Micro Four Thirds mount. So a lot of people might be happy about that. A lot of people might not be happy about that. Now, I, for one, am someone who's happy about that because I use EF mount glass on everything. And I was using it on my Pocket 4K. Actually, let me show you. I've got mine here. I was using it on my Pocket 4K. So here's my Pocket 4K rigged out like a freaking beast. This is one of my Schneider lenses that I love. It is in EF mount. And I use, like most people are, a Metabone speed booster to adapt it to Micro Four Thirds, because the beauty of Micro Four Thirds is that short flange distance, and so you can adapt pretty much any lens out there from any system onto Micro Four Thirds. Or, of course, you could just use Micro Four Thirds lenses, which are a lot smaller, they're a lot lighter, they tend to be a lot more affordable, and there are even some really good cinema ones out there now that people are picking up and liking. So if you're someone who picked up the Pocket 4K because you've always been into that smaller camera form factor, and you wanted to stay that way, you wanted to stay light with Micro Four Thirds lenses, maybe you have an inventory of Micro Four Thirds lenses that you use on everything, maybe you're a GH5 guy and you've always had Micro Four Thirds, then this is not going to make you happy, the new EF mount, because you would need EF glass to go onto it. Now, as someone who's using EF glass, let me pull this thing back up on here. As someone who's using EF mount glass, I like this because it ditches the need for an adapter, which is another point of failure. It's, it's another element in front of your, in front of your sensor in terms of glass. So you're going to be reducing some quality. While Metabones is pretty high quality, the fact of the matter is there's another piece of glass in there. So you're getting, it's a native EF mount. So yeah, whether you're in the camp that you are happy about that or sad about it, may be based upon what system you've invested into for glass. Because EF mount, you're not really going to be able to adapt stuff to that. You're gonna need EF. Now, there may be some situations where you can figure something out to do it, but then you've got the sensor to deal with where you are now covering, you're not gonna be able to cover a larger sensor. So there's that. But both models exist out there, and I'm going to show you as we go through, they actually end up being sort of comparable in everything except resolution, and a few frame rates and stuff. And so, you're not forced to get the 6K. You can still get the 4K. And my 4K is not going anywhere. I'm going to tell you that. My 4K, I'm not getting rid of it. I'm not dumping it on eBay or anything like that right away. Let's see what we've got in the chat real quick here. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So I've got all of my screens going, and I'm all over the place here today, guys. So if you do have something and I seem to be missing it, hang on. Does this help here? Yeah, it does. Sorry, just playing with the background. So if there is something you want to get my attention, make sure to, I have this little note down here at the bottom. You can just @ me. It should pop up my name, and then it'll show up so that it really gets my attention in the corner of my eye. But anyway, Tim said they were smart to drop the 6K with EF as they take some of the Metabones market, as 4K EF wouldn't cut it because of the crop factor. Yeah, so somebody was putting out an article, I forget, I saw like a headline somewhere that was like, well, Metabones is dead, which of course isn't true, but there's plenty of use for them and plenty of other things for them to adapt to. But yeah, for that 6K, not needed. Furworks, I'm gonna have to get a Metabones EF to MFT speed sucker. So is that going in reverse? So it'll actually make it'll reduce your amount of light and everything, but you can put a Micro Four Thirds onto a an EF mount. That'd be funny. Trevor's here. Hey, how you doing, Trevor? Says, yeah, it doesn't affect the Metabones market. With the speed booster, you get a wider field of view than you do with the EF mount. That's something I want to talk about. Trevor, you're getting ahead. But that's something that I was considering too. But good, we've got awesome conversations going in here. Awesome reasons to buy each, but like all camera companies, they introduce it like it's the same. The cameras are really different. Yeah, they are different cameras, and they are for different people, despite their looks. And we're gonna look into it. So I want to carry on because you brought up something that was really good there that I am going to talk about with that sensor, and with EF and crop, and what you're actually getting out of the 6K versus the 4K, and especially when you're speed boosting the 4K. So let's go back here. So we're gonna breeze through real quick. You guys can check this out. Like I said, this is the Blackmagic website. So there's tons of stuff. Mostly their typical beautiful marketing photos. Like yep, EF and dynamic range is supposed to match. Dual gain ISO, just like the 4K. So dual ISOs at 400 and 3200, and they say they're supposed to match. Frame rates and resolutions we are going to get into because obviously we have some new resolutions with that 6K sensor. Media, I do want to talk about quality and speed of raw. Yeah. Good goodness, there's so much in here. Microphones, USB-C. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's all familiar from the 4K. But you're looking at almost double the price here. Okay, so yeah, almost double the price. That's no small thing. So what I really want, as I fumble my words, maybe I should have a drink of water here. Yeah, actually, Sean's got a great comment in here, and it's kind of the same boat I'm in. He says, I'm good to wait a bit to get the 6K. He says he just got his 4K. Yeah, congratulations on that, man. I know you've been giving Photo Joseph a hard time about you having that thing. It's an awesome camera. I love it. Just got my 4K, and I still mostly output 1080. So I'm the same way, man. So I have the 4K. And just a quick short side story here. So I saw the 4K at NAB, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, but I kind of wasn't interested. I wasn't clamoring over it and dying to get it. And then an opportunity came up where I wanted to use I needed an additional camera for a shoot. And actually I borrowed from Blackmagic Tim in here in the chat. I borrowed his and used it, and I fell in love. I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, because my A cam is a Blackmagic Ursa Mini 4.6. And then I bought it, but I was way beyond that like first wave of everyone who pre-ordered and went nuts over it. So I got it, and I've been using it more and more and absolutely loving it. And so maybe this camera will be the same kind of deal, but I don't know. But if you do want to check out my reasons for picking up the Pocket 4K, I did a live discussion about that. There's links down in the description down below. And I also want you guys to know that I've added a lot of the resources that we're going to be looking at today down in the description below as well. So if you aren't able to hang out, you can go ahead and check out, because everything I'm going to be showing you today is all publicly accessible. Other than my opinions, but yeah. So Wannabe Films is saying the big thing in terms of standards is that with a Super 35 sensor, it's Netflix compliant. Yeah, so we should start talking about this sensor. We should start talking about this sensor because obviously we are interested in that. So I'm going to pull up here. Okay, so this is an article over at New Shooter, and this has been so far like the most in-depth collection of information that I found. They did a fantastic job. Eric Naso, you're awesome, man. And they even did an update after the initial release, because they had this thing out like right after the live stream, but then they did an update with even more detailed information, because I had a lot of questions and a lot of other people did too. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, Trevor's getting in there, but it's not technically a Super 35 sensor. We're gonna get into this, man, because Super 35 is an amorphous term. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just like a sort of genre category that things fall into. Sensors these days are like the Wild West, and it's like, anything kind of in this range we call this, and anything kind of in this range we call that. So let's take a look here. Where's the part I wanted to talk about? Okay, so here's the EF mount, and here we are looking at the sensor. I know this is kind of small on here, but this was the Pocket 4K at 10 millimeters by 16.96. And you know what? That thing, let me see if I have any, there we go. That thing was actually, we call it Micro Four Thirds, but it is actually a little bit bigger than Micro Four Thirds. Meanwhile, we have this new 6K Super 35 sensor at 12.99 millimeters by 23.10 millimeters, which is actually smaller than most of the other main flagship Super 35 cinema cameras out there, including the Super 35 that's in the Blackmagic Ursa Mini G2. It's smaller, but we're still calling it Super 35 because it's just, we're lumping it into that category. I'm not saying it's not Super 35. I'm okay with calling this Super 35, but I want to know exactly what its crop is, because there are different crops for different sensors from different manufacturers in Super 35, and it depends on your codec and it depends on your bitrate. Yeah, Wannabe Films is saying S35 is a pretty loose standard. Yeah, I mean 100%. We're just putting it in a box, and it's like, is there more room in the box for another sensor in there? Yeah, okay, so it's Super 35. There we go. But like I said, I'm okay with them calling it that. I just want to know the numbers. I want to know the numbers. And I found the numbers. Let me pull this up for you guys. So here, I want to show you this. This is from Pro AV. Where did that pop up? So Pro AV had an awesome video, they still do. They have an awesome video out over on their channel. I put a link to it down below because they brought up 3 things that, it was titled like 3 things you may have missed, some little details and caveats that you want to keep an eye on for this camera. So here is a nice graphic. Like I said, credit to Pro AV and their video. I took this straight from there. So they did the work. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and I really appreciate that they did this. But so here's Micro Four Thirds in gray in the middle, okay? And then here is the Pocket 4K sensor right here. And then here's the Pocket 6K, a little bit bigger. And then here's the Ursa Mini Pro G2, and then this outer bounding box is full frame. Now, I'm not doing this to nitpick anything or show that like, oh look, it's not true Super 35 or anything. I'm not saying that. I just wanted to show you, I think it's nice to see these things laid out in a sort of comparison size chart. It really helps me get an idea of how large these things physically are. I'm not somebody who sits there and crunches millimeters and all that stuff of sizes of sensors. I just want to know how it's going to perform for me. And, you know, I could sit here and tear apart the specs for forever, but I want to know what that is. So I wanted to show you guys that. But then here we go. This is the one that I was really interested in, which was what are going to be our crop factors. Oh, that's tiny. Let's blow that up. Even I can barely read that. I bet you guys can't read that at all. So here we go. This is an awesome chart. Sorry it's all blurry because I scaled it up like crazy. This is a posting of the actual crop factors of our new sensor, which is what I wanted to know. Okay, so we've got 6K up here at the top, which is amazing, right? 6K, full sensor, 6144 by 3456 pixels, sensor scan full, 50 frames per second. We're going to get into that. Crop factor 1.558. Okay, so the full sensor is a crop factor of 1.558. I'd call that Super 35. Yes, I would. But I don't shoot at 50 FPS. And I'm not looking to shoot 6K. So let's move a little bit more towards where I find myself shooting, which would be down here in Ultra HD. Okay, this is what I usually shoot, is Ultra HD. And I pulled this from that New Shooter article if you guys want to go ahead and check it out after the fact as well, so make sure you go do that. So Ultra HD, 3840 by 2160, what I usually shoot. I can shoot in ProRes. Can't scale from the full sensor because that'll only handle 50 FPS. I shoot NTSC, so, you know, because I'm in the States, I need a 60 FPS or a subsequent thing, you know, 24, 2398, 30, yeah, 60. So that's getting scaled from a little bit less of the sensor. And that's a 1.692 crop. Okay, I'll still call it Super 35, but now we're cropping more than what we call the standard APS-C, which is usually 1.5, or there's some out there that are 1.6. So when you're shooting in Ultra HD, which is what means the most to me, I'm getting almost a 1.7 crop. Okay? So a 1.7 crop if I'm shooting Ultra HD up to 60 frames per second. Now, let's think about my Pocket 4K. Now, the Pocket 4K, this is an image from CVP. CVP had a great video as well, also linked. We're going to talk about it a little bit. They did a comparison between the 4K and the 6K, but I love this chart. So this is about the original, the 4K model, the Pocket 4K. So we're talking 3840 by 2160. Again, I'm using these as my base numbers because these are what I shoot at 2.03 crop. That's just its standard crop compared to full frame. So let me get my phone out here. Let's do some calculating here. Trevor says, now you're getting to the meat part. Yeah, I know I do too much fluff, but this is the stuff I wanted to know. So here we go. So we're going to take, so 2.03, okay, that's our crop factor. Let me get our full screen back so you can see. No magic tricks here. No magic tricks. Okay, 2.03. Now my speed booster isn't even the one that magnifies it the most. I use the 0.71. So let's see here. So I'm going to multiply that by 0.71x. It's 1.44. I'm getting a 1.44x crop on my full frame size lenses. That's better. That's wider. That's even wider than the sensor itself at a 1.53 or 1.55 or something, whatever it is. Kind of crazy right there, right? And now let's do this. 2.03 times 0.64, because that's the other Metabone speed booster out there, which should get it even closer to full frame. 1.29. 1.29. So, let me pull back up our crop factors here. So, okay, I'm not knocking anything, okay? But this is the information that I, as a shooter, wanted to know. So, I am getting, what was it again? 2.03 times 0.71. With my lenses, I'm getting 1.44x crop at Ultra HD. Okay, when I'm looking here at the Pocket with the 6K, the Pocket 6K here, I'm getting 1.69. So it's not a huge difference, but I'm actually getting a little bit more field of view on my Pocket 4K than I would with the native mount on here. And that's what Trevor, I believe it was Trevor who was saying that earlier. There you go. Who was saying that earlier, that yeah, actually you can get wider with a speed booster on the Pocket 4K. The Pocket 4K, that's the wrong part of that to emphasize. On the Pocket 4K, there we go, than you do natively putting one on the Pocket 6K. Now, there are some other numbers in here that I'm also interested as well, because I really do like shooting in slow motion. And I was like, okay, so the Pocket 4K, yeah, obviously it has to window in on the sensor when you get to those really high frame rates. That makes sense to me. You know, you're pulling a lot more data. It needs to pull data from a smaller portion of the sensor for the processing to be able to keep up. Now, I knew that was going to happen as well, but I was like, ooh, how much have they updated the internal guts of the Pocket 6K? Because it's got a lot more data information on that sensor to pull from. So I'm worried about the crop factor of that. So if we look down here at the bottom, there you go, it is on screen. You know, if you're shooting 120 frames per second, yeah, I get it. It's 2.8K. That's wonderful. I'm throwing resolution aside because, like most people, like Sean even said, I shoot in 4K, but I deliver in 1080. So if I need to shoot a slow-mo clip in 1080, I'm fine. But again, just me. So it's going to vary for everybody, but I just wanted to point this out. We're looking at a 3.388. 3.388. Wait, yes, I said that right. Double threes, double eights, 1 decimal point. Crop into that sensor. So you are really, really punching. You're going to need a super, super, super wide EF mount lens, which EF mount, larger lenses for the most part, you start getting wide, you're probably going to have something that's kind of heavy on there, because that's a lot of glass to cover that larger sensor. Although I guess you could put a lighter lens on there. But anyway, we'll mess with that later, because your field of view, because you're windowing in on the sensor, so a smaller thing, you might get some vignetting. I'm sure people are going to try slapping all sorts of things onto this and figure out what vignettes and what doesn't. But if you look at this, you know, a 3.388 X crop. So that's pretty substantial. You know, at that point, I'm not getting a Super 35 sensor. I'm getting less than a Micro Four Thirds sensor at that point. Now let's see how close that is to our whatchamacallit, to our original Pocket 4K. Okay, so as you can see, it is better. 4.05x just with a plain pass-through adapter, but 2.88x on my particular speed booster, 2.6x on a speed booster XL, the 0.64. So again, being able to speed boost is actually going to give you more of a field of view when it comes to your lens if you're putting a full frame lens on there. Now, keep in mind, they're still going to look and react differently because one is a larger sensor. One is a Super 35, one is Micro Four Thirds. So you're going to have that, you know, probably slightly different depth of field. You're going to have a little bit of different sensitivity to light and all of that. And but in terms of your crop factors, you get less windowed with the smaller sensor on the Pocket 4K. Just putting that out there. Don't shoot the messenger if this is something you don't care about and you're like, why are you nitpicking this? I'm really sorry. But this is the information that I myself was interested in. And so when it comes down to it for me, the reason that I'm not jumping on this right away is because yes, it has that larger sensor. Yes, it has that higher resolution. But I don't, for myself, have the immediate need to take use of what it's giving me. What the capabilities that it's giving me. I'm not going to be shooting in 6K. You know, not even to scale it down and scale it back, and I'll talk about why in this next section here. But it's just, there's a lot there, but I'm going to be losing field of view compared to my Pocket 4K. So I feel like they would be good companions, like sisters, and see what the quality would be between the two, because there is obviously an advantage of overshooting, you know, at those higher resolutions and scaling it back down. But yeah, crazy, right? All right, so let's see what we got in the chat. Yeah, a lot of people talking about that crop is Canon worthy. Thanks, Trevor. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like one of their things. Sean saying, I feel like this is an S year, speaking in Apple terms. Next year at NAB, I predict IBIS and articulating screen. Yeah, I almost feel like it's sort of an incremental upgrade as well, but I don't know. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Fumbling my words, man. I want to talk one thing about the advantage that there could possibly be for a Super 35 sensor. And actually, not that there could possibly be, that there probably is. So now that I've nitpicked crop and all that kind of stuff, and how it's comparable to really what you would get on the Pocket 4K anyway. So Super 35 is going to, in theory, possibly have better ISO performance. So both of them have that dual native ISO 400 and 3200. They both have, in my opinion, pretty good ISO performance on the Pocket 4K, especially coming from Blackmagic, who hasn't been known for great ISO performance. But when it comes to physics, sheer physics, the larger sensor is going to be able to gather more light. So while you have the same ISOs and the same base sensitivities, it's possible that you could work in lower light situations with that Super 35 sensor. Because it's going to be pulling in more light. Now remember, it's not pulling in like double the light or anything like that, because if we remember, if I pull it up again, this image from Pro AV, you know, it's not that much bigger, but it is bigger. So, you know, I would have to play with it. And again, I'm not a low light shooter, so I'm not really, you know, worried about this too much. But if you are, you know, this could be something to think about, because it's, you know, it's going to be drinking in a bit more light because there's more pixels, more photosites, more size. That's the way it works. So there we go. I do want to catch up in the chat. You guys are just tearing it up. I knew this was going to be a popular thing, and nobody's like demanding my head or anything yet, so that's good. Because like I said, I am probably planning on adding this camera to my kit. I will say that right now, but I did not pre-order it. I'm not jumping on it right now. I have a feeling it might be something that I might have a shoot come up, same kind of situation that led me to get the Pocket 4K. I might have a shoot come up where I'm going to have a budget to add a third camera. You know, we're going to need a 3-camera shoot. And I have done some where I rented a second Pocket 4K. There's actually a behind-the-scenes video of a shoot that I did with 2 Pocket 4Ks in my Ursa down below. So if you want to check that out, that was kind of a fun video. But I may decide at that point to be like, okay, this is it. Let's use some of that budget. Let's buy a Pocket 6K and add that to the mix. So that would be like my 3-cam situation. And who knows? I might like it. It may become my B cam, and then the Pocket 4K becomes the C cam. I don't know. I'd have to use it. But anyway, I like that Wannabe Film said, or use Apple terminology and go with APS-C XS Max. Yeah, just add a whole bunch of stuff to it there. Steve Holt is in here. More light unless you use a speed booster. There you go. Speed booster again. That's very right. Yeah, good point, man. If you get the speed booster, who knows? Speed boosters also increase the performance by condensing the light onto the sensor so that you essentially gain a stop or more of light. So that sensor size difference in terms of the close to Super 35 versus the little bit larger than Micro Four Thirds means that with a speed booster, you could potentially be getting better low light performance and giving your sensor more light with a speed boosted Pocket 4K. And a Pocket 4K plus a speed booster, because the Metabones ones aren't cheap, you know, they're like, what, $650. But these two together are still under, what's that come to? Under $2,000 or just about $2,000 for the camera and a speed booster. And then you've got EF mount, and you've got a wider field of view and possibly the same light gathering capability as the Pocket 6K. Yeah, that's something to think about there. Trevor's saying you can get up to 1.33 stops of light with a speed booster, but you can't mimic the depth of field. Yes, and that's one thing I did mention, you know, adding light and all that stuff, the physical size, there is physics there, you know, the physical size is going to look different for you. So you're going to have depth of field differences and all that between a Micro Four Thirds and a Super 35. But the question here, and I really want to check this out, is how much of a difference is there between these two? Because remember, again, the Pocket 4K sensor is actually larger than most other Micro Four Thirds sensors. So it's bigger than Micro Four Thirds by a little bit. And the Pocket 6K is smaller than Super 35. Just a little bit. You know, we call them both that, but it's like we're really shrinking the margin between the sizes of these things here. And so who knows? I don't know what the performance might look like and what the depth of field difference would be. Like, I'm interested. There has been some video released out there. I saw on YouTube this morning. I didn't get to explore it very much, but you know, it's something that I probably got to get my hands on and really try it on my own and see if that thing is for me. All right, where was I going? The ISO performance, blah blah blah. Oh, okay. So obviously there's a lot more to this than just the sensor. You know, it's got some improved capabilities and all that kind of stuff. But what I wanted to show you is something that's kind of interesting and maybe not the greatest. I want to talk to you about the codecs at these different resolutions and the frame rates. So this that I'm about to show you here is also from that Blackmagic design, or not Blackmagic design, I'm losing it, from the News Shooter article. Like I said, they did an incredible job gathering all the information into one place. But here are our resolutions that it can shoot and the size of the sensor and the maximum frame rates, right? Cool. You guys notice anything? Notice this codecs thing? Now, I'm not sure if this is just like the way they've laid this chart out, but it's looking like, and it's being reported, that these are the only codecs that are supported in these particular formats, okay? So 6K, the full thing, you can only shoot in Blackmagic RAW. You can't shoot ProRes. And your maximum for the full sensor is 50 frames per second. Now you can go down to a 2.4 to 1 6K version, a little bit windowed on the sensor, but still only Blackmagic RAW. Then you can get your 60 frames per second and subsequent and stuff like that. 5.7K, 17 by 9, sure. Only Blackmagic RAW. So when you get to 4K DCI and Ultra HD, then we start getting all of our flavors of ProRes. You see this? So we've got all of our flavors of ProRes. So we've got ProRes in these, but no Blackmagic RAW. So I can't shoot Ultra HD Blackmagic RAW. I can only shoot all the way here at the top or here in sort of the middle. So then we've got these right here, 3.7K anamorphic, only Blackmagic RAW, no ProRes. 2.8K 17 by 9, Blackmagic RAW, no ProRes. Then we go to the HD level where we start getting some of our, you know, high frame rate, 120 frames per second, awesome. All ProRes, no Blackmagic RAW. So what is going on? Even in the Pocket 4K, I have the capability at UHD, which is what I usually shoot, to go to Blackmagic RAW or all the flavors of ProRes. So something's going on here, and you know, it could be the data rate coming off of that sensor that they can't handle it. But that is pretty crazy right there. So that's something that was really brought up in that that Pro AV video that's linked below. Please go ahead and check that out, because yeah, that's something to consider. I have the capability of shooting Blackmagic RAW, but I don't shoot Blackmagic RAW yet. I really like ProRes, but if I did want to shoot like and use that full sensor, it looks like I don't have the choice of ProRes, which is kind of crazy. Now, the next thing, let's see here. Do I have it in here? Okay, I think it's in the article. So let me pull the chat up while we find this here. I saw Channel Unknown was in here. Welcome, welcome. What is the bitrate on the Pocket? So that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Where, you know, obviously more data, larger resolution, all that is coming at a higher cost in terms of data rates. Now, one of the things that people have loved about the Pocket 4K and all of this is like, oh, we can shoot to SD cards, which, yeah, that's kind of amazing. I'm a CFast guy myself, coming from the original Ursa, but not everybody wants to drop that kind of money on CFast media. And to be honest, if the Ursa wasn't my first camera, I probably would have been looking into really fast SD cards for my Pocket 4K, but I use the CFast. But the Pocket 6K has the same setup. It takes CFast or it takes SD cards. Now, obviously specific SD cards, but let's see how specific of SD cards, because we've got some data rates in this thing that SD, even the best right now, are not going to be able to handle. So let me see here. Where was it? Is that it? No. Okay, here we go. So this is that news shooter article again. Like I said, Eric Naso absolutely killed it with this article, man. Everything you would want to know is in there. So if I miss anything or miss a question, make sure to go check this thing out and the other articles and videos I have linked below, and they will answer all of your questions. But here we go. 6K Blackmagic RAW. We're looking at, in 3:1 compression, you're talking 323 megabytes per second. That's a lot. And you're going to need a serious SD card to be able to handle that. If you're shooting Blackmagic RAW in their Q0, it's 194 to 483 megabytes per second. Okay? CFast 2.0 cards right now are around 500, meaning that is a CFast only format. Now that's fine. This is the top of the line. Like people, they're the top of the Codecs and all that kind of stuff. People are gonna expect that, yeah, SD probably can't do anything. But you need to be careful because there's a lot of these bit rates in here. Even if we're shooting at like Ultra HD, I think the reason that they didn't put Blackmagic RAW into Ultra HD is because we're already at 110 megabytes per second at ProRes HQ. I mean, I don't know. Were the bit rates getting too high that they couldn't reliably get them to go onto the SD cards? Now, granted, they are UHS 2. You need some pretty pricey SD cards to get the full thing. Obviously, you can shoot lower resolutions and lower bit rates and all that stuff and be safe with more affordable cards. But for me, I like to make sure that I have media in my camera so that no matter what setting I set this thing to, it should be able to record. Like I want to be able to do everything. I don't want to have to worry about, oh, I have the wrong card in there for that shot. I want to do this, I can't, yeah. But yeah, it's crazy. So we've got some talk in here about bitrate. So there's a lot of numbers here for you guys to check out. And also the CVP video did a fantastic job at calculating some bit rates and stuff and speculating like why some of these other formats don't exist in it. So make sure to check out their video. I know I'm plugging everybody else's stuff all over the place, but they did a fantastic job, and that's where I got all my information to look at. So we got stuff in the chat. I saw some stuff I wanted to pay attention to here. Trevor was saying the Samsung T5 should be good up to 480 megabytes per second. Good to know. So yes, there is still that SSD recording option. Trevor's saying you can forget SD cards with this camera. I mean, you can drop a lot of money into SD cards, but they do kind of plateau at a certain point, and you're gonna be outrunning their capabilities. Furworks is saying those bit rates are most likely from the manual, and if so, they're all assuming 30 frames per second. Double it for 60 frames per second. That is a very good point. They don't mention the frame rates on these. Yeah, so if you start upping those because you're doubling the data that you're capturing, Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, if you start shooting in 60 FPS, you're going to run those bit rates through the roof, even in the ProRes settings. That's crazy. That's a very good point. And quadruple for 120 FPS. That's very true. I saw another one in here. So yeah, Steve, you were talking. You mentioned the anamorphic and all that stuff. I could talk all day about anamorphic. It's not something I ever really got into full time. I've tried some rigs and stuff of friends. I'm glad that anamorphic is in there, but I'd have to do a lot more research to figure out how I would use that anamorphic. So I don't want to get into that too much, but it is there. And people talking about Blackmagic Raw. So I did some live discussions about Blackmagic Raw when it was first released. I haven't added the link yet, but I'll remember to add it down there after the show. Kind of what it's all about, what it does, and why I think it's going to be a big deal. And then also I did one. What was the other one? I was talking about Blackmagic Raw. Oh, and the removal of Cinema DNG from Blackmagic cameras, which was our traditional kind of RAW format that we were used to. Now it seems like they're pushing Blackmagic Raw maybe even harder, because we have some resolutions, namely the max resolutions, where you can only shoot Blackmagic Raw, not even ProRes, which is kind of crazy. Like I said, I have the ability with my Pocket 4K to shoot Blackmagic Raw, but I haven't yet because they haven't brought Blackmagic Raw to my Ursa Mini 4.6K, and I don't think they're going to. So I would be interested in something like a G2 just to get Blackmagic Raw and maybe move into that workflow, because at the ProRes bit rates that I usually shoot, you know, the file sizes are actually going to be the same for my ProRes versus Blackmagic Raw. And then, of course, I have all those benefits of its raw capabilities. I would still be waiting. Somebody mentioned it in there. Plug-in for Premiere, because I am still a Premiere guy. I know, I'm sorry. Just am. To work with Blackmagic Raw. But yeah, all that remains to be seen. It's a workflow that I am excited about, but I really haven't dove into it yet. And who knows? So one thing I do want... Hey, Devin Hansen's in here. Good to see you, man. Maybe it's time for some USB-C drives. So that's the other thing about USB-C on this, is that they left the USB-C connection as Gen 1 and not Gen 2. So even the speeds of that, of the Gen 1 connector, are going to top out on you. Why they didn't add Gen 2 for the connection, so that you can double the bandwidth on that. Like, you could have the fastest SSD drive, but if your bottleneck is literally the connection interface, it doesn't matter. So I'm not sure why they did that. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe they're like, nah, we're never going to need anything more than that. But it looks like you would have the capability to add data rates even higher than that. But maybe they're getting stopped by the Gen 1 bottleneck. I don't know. Like, or maybe they're hoping media will catch up in terms of like CFAT. I don't know. So bit rates will definitely be something to keep an eye on moving forward and figuring out what you got to do. But as we're moving along here, I did mention my potential interest in the future picking up a G2. And I was really on that track until now. Because one of the big things about this camera is, yes, this is huge. You know, it's really cool. We've got a pocket-sized camera, pocket line camera, with a 6K Super 35 sensor. Okay, that's cool. But this is something that Blackmagic really hasn't done before. They've started with a massive leap forward at what I would call the bottom of their product line. If you look at the generations and basically creation of the Ursa series, right? It started with the big beast, the original Ursa. It came out and it got the features and specs first. Then the Ursa Mini came out. Then we've got the Pocket 4K, which a lot of people call the the Ursa Micro. But features from those things trickle down. So it starts with like, you know, the higher end camera and then trickles down. They bring this up. This is the first time that we've really seen where they're implementing something at the bottom that doesn't exist in their one above. So I am now no longer ready to click add to cart on a G2 because I want to see this sensor or a sensor that's a little bit larger and maybe closer to true Super 35, maybe higher resolution, whatever. I'm not even all that, but I would be happy even if they took this sensor, slapped it in a G or in an Ursa Mini body, put that additional cooling, that additional computing horsepower behind it, and see what kind of frame rates, what kind of resolutions we could get out of that thing. I guess the resolutions would be capped, but frame rates, performance, all that kind of stuff in an Ursa Mini Pro body, I think would be awesome. And I don't see why they couldn't do it. You know, the hardest part is kind of getting that sensor, and usually they give the sensor to the bigger horsepower cameras, and then they put it in the smaller cameras, and then they got to throttle it back a little bit because of cooling and processing and all that. Well, you just put it in your smallest body. I want to see what it can do in the bigger body, in the Pro body. And like I said, people have been saying maybe they're going to have an 8K in there. I'm not a huge into the rumor mill, but what I do know is that there are two products sitting in, you know, the Blackmagic R&D lab in Australia somewhere. Somewhere there's a G2 just sitting on a guy's desk. And on the other side of his desk, there's this new 6K Super 35 sensor. And at some point, he's going to mash them together. You know, these are not theoretical things. These both exist. And so marrying them together, I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. Obviously, I'm not an engineer, and I know it's not just as easy as like, oh, hey, it fit in there. Look at that. But I'm just saying, I think that's where it's going to go. I just think it's really interesting that they started on the level of the Pocket series as opposed to higher. And I guess, you know, a lot of that is marketing and strategy and going after ones like Canon and Sony and Panasonic. You know, they had a huge success with this Pocket 4K, and the Pocket 6K, they were like, okay, let's make a leap forward, but let's make a leap forward for this base of people that are looking for this type of camera. The people who are buying the small Sonys, the A7 series. The people who are buying the EOS R from Canon. You know, the people who are buying the GH5 from Panasonic and GH5S. These people right now, they like the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, you know, but they're probably not quite sure. I know a lot of people in a lot of forums that I see that are like, yeah, I like it, it's great, but I'm sticking with my Sony, or I'm sticking with my Canon, or whatever. You know, now they're really starting to appeal to not only them, but also to people like me, who I'm like, okay, my primary is your bigger cinema camera, which is, you know, not for everybody. But now even I'm looking with, you know, a lustful eye at these Pocket series cameras. And yeah, that's a good way to take a chunk out of the market and sort of light the fire beneath these other companies. Because yeah, while spec for spec, they might not, you know, be, you know, matched perfectly. Like, yeah, there's still full frame out there. We're going to see a full frame, you know, Blackmagic. Maybe, but you know what? I really don't have a desire to. Truth of the matter is, Super 35 is pretty much... Okay, so Super 35 is what cinema cameras and video cinema cameras have been forever, okay? So it was the transition of the 5D Mark II from Canon having a full frame photo sensor, because full frame was not a measurement of video sensors. It was a stills sensor size, okay? So when they gave it the capability of video, it came over, and now we have full frame references in video. It was never that way, okay? So lusting after full frame, sure, that's great. but that is a stills sensor-based size, which is fine. We all know what it does. That super shallow depth of field. You can drink in so much light. That's awesome. That's great. But I don't feel it's truly necessary. And also, if you really want to get into it, guys, if you look at the size of an APS-C or Super 35 sensor, it is actually closer to the true size of 35 millimeter film, like motion picture film. So if you're one of those purists out there and you're like, oh yeah, I want it to look like film, then Super 35. But anyway, I'm not lusting after full frame. That's all I'm saying, me personally. We have this thing to always want more and wait for the next and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm finding myself in a situation here where I'm kind of stuck. I'm like, I half want this, I half don't want this, I half want to wait. And so I'm going to wait. I don't know how long I'll wait. I may change my mind in like 2 weeks and pick one up. But for the time being, the things that matter for me are the fact of the matter is I don't need 6K resolution. Even though, yes, shooting in the Ultra HD, it is 5.7K of that sensor being compressed down, so it'll probably be sharper, better quality and all that. Yes, that would be a benefit of it, but I usually am shooting in UHD. I'm usually even delivering in 1080. It looks like I'm getting more of the field of view from my lenses by speed boosting on my Pocket 4K. And I have the option to shoot in Blackmagic RAW and ProRes in my favorite codecs, or my favorite resolutions and frame sizes, which it seems like we're severely limited in the Pocket 6K, at least right now, and at least the way these charts are looking. Who knows? Firmware update could wipe all that out, could make everything good again. But yeah, so that's interesting. I just wanted to say that's what I think. I want to see in the future from Blackmagic. I think they're doing great. A lot of people were upset by this release because they maybe just got a Pocket 4K, or you've only had it for a couple months and they're like, now it's out of date and obsolete. No, it's not. There is, even if I was sitting there and if I didn't own this and I was looking and I was side by side about to buy either the 4K or the 6K, these are the things that I would look at, the stuff we went over today. Looking at what kind of focal length I'm getting out of stuff, what's the crop, what formats can I shoot in, and all of that. And I think my decision would come down to, okay, I have more Micro Four Thirds glass, or I have more EF glass and I want to use this, or I have a little bit of extra money, so still for less than the Pocket 6K, I can get the Pocket 4K with a speed booster, use my EF glass on it, potentially get the same or more light performance out of it, and get more of my lens's focal length out of it. Just saying, that's what the numbers say. So I don't know what I would do if I had both of them in my hands and was going to buy one for the first time. I don't know. It's actually kind of tough, especially because it's almost double the price. If they were a lot more closer in price, and me adding the speed booster to the Pocket 4K was going to have it be several $100s more than buying the 6K with the native EF mount, then 6K would win, hands down. But that's a big price jump. It's still super affordable. It's still super affordable compared to all the other stuff out there, compared to what Red's cooking up with their Komodo or whatever it is, or Kamado, I don't know. That's a grill, isn't it? But so, they're working, I guess it would be Komodo, like Komodo Dragon. Sorry, it was working in the back of my head there. But, they're working on that. It's a 6K and all that. But guys, for the price, this is absolutely insane. That's freaking great. But it's the pricing compared to their own pricing that's kind of interesting me here, in that it's almost double the price. But I don't see almost double the features. Anyway, I still want it. That's what it comes down to. Let me pay attention to the chat here for a little bit, guys. We're about at that hour mark now. I've been ranting for quite a bit. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I want to see if I missed anything and chat with you guys for a little bit here. And also go through my notes and make sure that I've got everything. Looks like I crossed off everything that I wanted to say and showed you all the references and all that stuff. Again, really dive into the videos and the articles that I've linked to down below. They've got all this information for you again, and they did a fantastic job. So let's see here. Furworks talking about Blackmagic Raw completely changed the camera. It's improved your workflow so much. Yeah, I hope to explore that workflow. I just need an A cam that does that. And I need, yeah. Let's see here. This camera is begging for a mini SDI out. Yeah, you know, that's a good point. They are both just HDMI out, aren't they? Yeah. So HDMI out on these guys. Yeah, they should add a mini SDI so that you can run SDI out of it. That'd be nice. That's a good point. Let's see what else we got here. Devin saying the internal main board may not be able to do anything past Gen 1 anyway. It might have required a redesign to the camera in a way that would have made it too costly. Okay. So he's talking about that USB-C protocol that they're using. I said they're using the Gen 1, which is half the speed and capability of Gen 2, which would allow us to really push data out to capable SSDs. But he's saying that, yeah, it'd be, you know, obviously I don't know the engineering behind it, but he says it could be that like it would have been a complete massive overhaul of the internals to implement that protocol. So thanks. That's awesome. Good to know. Upgrading the HDMI output to 4K would have been nice too. Yeah, good point. That's right. They are HDMI output only, but they are also only 1080p output. It's not that I need more than that, but I want the option. I don't know. Yeah, Furworks is backing that up. Really wish the HDMI out on the Pocket 4K was 4K. I want to use it in my live setup. There you go. There's an example. If you want to stream in 4K and you want the Pocket to be your camera to do it, it can capture 4K, but it can't output 4K. Yeah, good point. Sorry, I'm going through here, seeing if we catch anything, guys. Got to catch up. You guys have had some great conversations in here. Blackmagic Tim saying started with the 2.5K. Actually, great camera, still have it. Yeah, Tim's been on the Blackmagic product line for a while, and that's not why his name is Blackmagic Tim. He was Blackmagic Tim before using Blackmagic cameras. So you're welcome, Tim. I want people to know that out there. Oh, my dog saw another dog outside. Airy is still 2K, and they're doing all right. Yeah, you know, not everybody is craving resolution bumps and all that. So yeah, but yeah, Blackmagic Tim saying 6K is a larger sensor and it doesn't have any more cooling apparatuses than the 4K, which shows they figure out a way to cool the sensor better. Actually, Tim, that turret on the front of it that they've extended it. There's a top-down view, and it actually has a much larger ventilation part on the top of it, and so it really is putting through more fan cooling there for that sensor. So I'll be interested to see how hot it gets and also what the fan noise is like on it. I mean, the fan noise has never been an issue on my Pocket, but it does seem like they had to beef up the cooling in there a little bit, and that EF mount with all that flange distance gave them the space to kind of, you know, put a lot in there. A little bit of talk about the GH5. Steve's asking, what about 70mm film? Yeah, let's start shooting some giant stuff. Devin says maybe those full frame filmmakers want an IMAX look. Yeah, we'll get a, you know, the Pocket IMAX will be our next camera, right? That'd be phenomenal. Gosh. Don't need that. I mean, we want that, but we don't need that. It's like most everything, though. All right, we're getting towards the end here, so looking to get this all wrapped up. Trevor says, so why would I buy this camera? One, to get the cleanest 4K. That's true. By the time you downsample from 6K, you should get better noise and detail. That is true. Like I said, shooting at, let me pull it up. Codecs and resolutions. So what Trevor is referring to here, and then I'll finish off that comment. He is referring to this right here. So like I said, this is the range I'm shooting in. So 50p and variants of that. Yeah, you can shoot in ProRes. It's scaled from that full 6K sensor down to your Ultra HD. This is where I would be, so I'm getting a little bit less, which would be 5.7K, but it is scaled down to that UHD, meaning that, yeah, you can get better noise performance. Everything is scaled down, and so you can get better quality and all that kind of stuff. And then he says, or two, to get a Super 35 depth of field. Yep, we talked about that. It's just physics with the size of the sensor as well and how it's going to look. And he says, otherwise, pick the 4K. Yeah. All right, let's see what we got here. Had one. Let me let it go through. Leanne Monk here says, from a marketing perspective, let me get us back to our full screen. From a marketing perspective, having both Micro Four Thirds 4K and a Super 35 6K gives filmmakers a compelling reason to choose one and plug into the Blackmagic camp, and then add or upgrade to an Ursa. Yeah, that's a very good point. Starting at the bottom of their line, not saying their bottom like bad cameras. I mean, it's the cheaper. It's the smaller, it's the baby, you know? But yeah, you're right. Getting somebody's foot in the door where they get a taste of this and what Blackmagic can do and its quality. I switched over to Blackmagic cameras just because of the sheer look. And the 4.6K was my first one, but you're right. This is a much lower cost and barrier to entry to get people over to this, to try this camera out, to quickly probably fall in love with whichever one, the Pocket 4K or the Pocket 6K, and then they can become customers that will grow into their more expensive and more capable product lines and products. Yeah, it's a very good point. Just a few more comments here and we're gonna duck out, guys. Brett says, I wish they bumped up the dynamic range to 15 stops like the Ursa. I'd have preferred that over the additional resolution. Yeah, me too. I do value dynamic range and frame rates actually more than I do resolution. That's just me. It could be different for other people. You know, if you're doing VFX work, you want that resolution. But yeah, so I'm in the same boat as you, man. I would have valued dynamic range over resolution. Go Bookings. Photo site size is also an important element in low light performance. Yes, it is. That's a good thing to note. And what they're talking about there is it was the A7S2, or even I guess the A7S. But anyway, an A7S series, the whole thing was you looked at those sensors versus their R variants. So there's the S and the R. The R was resolution. So the sensors were, call them roughly the same size. I don't have the exact specs of it. But what happened was, it was more megapixels on the R for resolution, but it was lower megapixels, quite a bit lower, on the S. And what that allowed them to do is that there were fewer photo sites on the same size sensor with the S, but the photo sites were larger. So fewer photo sites, less megapixels, but larger, meaning they were able to gather a lot more light and be a lot more sensitive, which is why it got that amazing low light sensitivity. So there's so much in sensor tech and design besides how many millimeters tall it is and how many millimeters wide it is. That's a very good point. I I don't know about this sensor. I actually don't know where it came from, whether they made it, like what is going on with it. But yeah, that'd be interesting to see its performance out of that. And Steve Holt, I'm totally on the fence between a second 4K or a 6K. Yeah, see, I have all full frame glass, but F mount. Ooh, okay. Also, both Ultra and XL speed boosters. Man, you are set. Steve, I would wait. Trevor says on there the same thing. I would wait. I don't think you need that 6K. Because I don't know, your glass is F mount, so are you going to be able to get that onto EF at all? And then you have both the Ultra and the XL speed boosters. You can slap those onto your Pocket 4K and you're getting, like we said several times, either the same or more light, and you're getting more of your focal length. I think if you really wanted something else, I think you should save yourself, half the cost and get another Pocket. But get another Pocket. I can't say that anymore. Pocket 4K. There's too many SKUs. I can't remember all the product line. But that's just my thought, Steve. I don't want you to do that and then feel it's the wrong choice and then come and hunt me down or something like that because I told you to do that. But if I were you, that's what I would do. If I really was going to add another one. And mainly because it's that F mount. If you had native EF mount and not F mount, I would say it would really be a toss-up to whether you wanted to check out the new one or if you wanted to just stay with, Old Faithful here. So there we go. Ursa 8.6K. Oh my gosh. All right. Now we're getting crazy. It has been about an hour and 10 minutes-ish, guys. So this was a long one, but I knew it would be. I really hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, enjoyed my thoughts, and hopefully I made some of these little, I wouldn't call them quirks, but little factoids that are lesser known about some of the limitations and definitions that are going on here. Hopefully those helped you out and I made you guys aware of those. Once again, I'll plug all the information is down in the link and description below. Links are down in the description below. See, it's past that hour mark. I start to fall apart here, guys. But yeah. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and close this out. Let me know what you decide if you do end up deciding to grab a 6K. Please let me know what you think of it and what kind of led you to that decision. If you have a 4K and you're keeping it, let me know why. If you don't have either, but you're doing a toss-up like some people in the chat here, which one are you going and why? I'd be interested in hearing all that. My mind is not yet made up, but all I know for now is that I'm waiting and I'm not adding anything to my cart at the moment. So for all you guys who hung out here live today, Trevor's saying it right there with the thumbs up. Yes, this was fun. It's always fun hanging out with you guys. This was a great discussion today. And if it was your first time joining us, then thank you so much for hanging out. The lively conversation is what really makes the live shows so much fun and so interactive. So if you want to be a part of more live shows, make sure that you are subscribed and click that notification bell down there. Like I said, we do these every Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, but it has been happening lately that I have to call some off because I'm just busy or I'm working on other stuff. But whenever I can, I'm on here and you will get alerts on there. And I do post in the community as well, letting you know when one is going to be moved or rescheduled. And also I have a Discord server down below that you can go ahead and join and we can chat. And I always put notifications in there and let you guys know what I'm up to and what I'm working on. But otherwise, guys, this has been awesome. I'm going to let you guys go enjoy the rest of your Saturdays wherever you may be in the world. You take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next live stream. All right.